I'd like to introduce Rachel G. Bennett. Rachel is a mom of CVI, a child with CVI, a lifelong learner, a powerful advocate for parents like you, and assistant director of CVI Now. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with me today, this afternoon. It's sunny, it's still a little chilly here in Boston, so hopefully it's a good day wherever you are. Welcome to our session today, CVI Roadmap for Understanding, where we're centering CVI voices and current research. We're talking about assessment advocacy. And again, thank you so much for being here after a full and wonderful day of learning. I am Rachel Bennett, the Assistant Director for CVI Now and Parent Advocacy and Support at the CVI Center at Perkins. It's a really exciting time to be here at Perkins. And I'm also CVI parent to Henry, who's 9. So I'm going to share my screen and get this up and going. Is that good? Hopefully.
It's good.
Thank you. I still don't trust it after how long has it been? 2 years. Okay. So for the next hour or so, the focus of our conversation will be about what we're learning from kids and teenagers and adults with CVI. I'm going to share some highlights from current research and why research is so important to our advocacy as parents and professionals. Highlights from the CVI Now IEP guide. I know you just had a lot of questions about the IEP process, so we have some resources for you. We're then going to move into a live conversation with me and 2 other CVI parents, Burju Sari and Lacey Smith. And then we're going to close out our session today hearing from Marguerite Tabarro and Ellen Maisel about considerations for essential assessment for individuals with CVI. So before we dive in, let's go back to this foundational question. What is CVI? And according to CVI, individuals with CVI and their families, current research, and educators, we know that CVI is a brain-based visual impairment caused by damage to the visual pathways or visual processing areas of the brain. CVI is the leading cause of blindness in children, and so much more research continues to support this. Individuals with CVI struggle with visual attention, being able to look at something, and visual recognition, being able to understand what you were looking at, resulting in a lack of access to and understanding of the world around them. CVI is lifelong. It's lifelong. Research shows us that the brain is able to live wire and build connections, right? Neuroplasticity. There is potential for improvement of functional vision for some individuals with CVI, and with visual access, some can use their vision. But CVI is always going to be there, and it's always going to be an ongoing need. And this last one is really important. All manifestations of CVI are a big deal for the individual. They're a big deal, all manifestations. It's not up to sighted individuals to make assumptions about the extent to which an individual with CVI, is impacted. Every individual CVI has a different lived experience, and CVI doesn't look one way or a certain way. It's a big, complex condition. It's critical that we infuse a disability rights lens when we're working with and serving and collaborating with individuals with CVI. And this is something that I'm working on, right? I really need to check my ableist lens at the door. And it's something that I've been able to bring to my relationship to my son, with my son, Henry, and it's been totally game-changing. It's up to the individual with CVI to define their own success and to live the life they want. It's about providing every opportunity for them to be fully empowered and for them to learn all the skills they need for access, right? CVI is on the blindness spectrum. And what are all the skills our heterogeneous population of CVI, individuals with CVI need to be fully successful and fully access the life, their world and their life on their own terms, right? It's about autonomy and agency and choice. So every individual with CVI, every individual's person's lived experience is different. Some see the world as a swirling mass of color, light, and movement that is incomprehensible and overwhelming. We're hearing from individuals with CVI that talk about how vision can seem like they're hallucinating, or it's really frightening and scary. Some can focus at times, but still may struggle to understand what they see. Many shut out the world altogether and avoid looking at objects and people, even with their own parents, because it's so difficult to make sense of their surroundings. And I see this with Henry every day. Others might appear to have learning difficulties or become anxious in new environments. Some use a white cane to navigate safely in their environment and communities. Many experience CVI meltdowns due to fatigue brought on by too many competing sensory inputs. CVI and fatigue can happen every day. And again, I see this with Henry. So let's lean in and listen to some CVI voices. Here's what we're learning from individuals with CVI. Individuals with CVI are the experts of their own brain. Vision is not passive, it's hard work. Vision is unreliable. Vision can be affected by both internal, what's going on inside the body, how you're feeling, and external states and stimuli, everything that's going on around the environment around you. There are many ways to access information. It's not just about vision. Compensatory skills do not take away from vision use, and self-advocacy and self-acceptance is critical. So let's dig deeper and keep learning. Nye is an adult with CVI and the author of an incredible blog called the Cvi Perspective. You can also find Nye's story on cvinow.org. On the left, you'll see a picture of Nye wearing sunglasses, holding their cane, enjoying the sunshine outside. Nye says, vision alone never came into focus by itself. It had to be buttressed by something non-visual. The lesson in CVI isn't about seeing or not seeing. It's about a much deeper principle, autonomy and choice. What CVI folks need are options and the freedom to choose. What we need is respect as the experts of our own brains. Here is Dagbort, an adult with CVI who is an opera singer and in graduate school studying music. You can find her story on CVI Now. Here she is smiling, holding a pink rose after one of her concerts. Dagbort says, when I'm rested and happy, I see clearly except for the visual field loss. My acuity is fine, but when I have visual fatigue, it's like looking through a straw. I have extremely limited visual field. It gets all fuzzy. I'm also not able to recognize what I was just looking at. Touch helps me recognize it again. I get almost blind when I'm tired. And Nicola McDowell is a researcher and an educator and an adult with CVI. She has a great blog on CVI Scotland. I'm sure many of you have read it so far. And she says, when in busy, cluttered classrooms when she was in school, she wrote, this clutter combined with the overload of other sensory information, such as the constant noise, movement, and smells of a classroom full of students, meant that I spent the whole school day feeling anxious and on edge. Being in these cluttered environments was also exhausting, and I soon learned that the only way I was going to survive each day was if I allowed myself some quiet time during break times. These solitary timeouts ended up becoming one of my most important strategies for dealing with the anxiety, confusion, and fatigue my visual issues created. In our CVI Now Parent Facebook group, there's a lot of discussion about the physical and emotional impact of CVI and fatigue, how it can cause nausea and vomiting and dizziness and migraines and headaches and pain, along with anxiety and confusion and fear and trauma. And it's really important that we understand the physical and emotional symptoms of navigating fatigue that comes with CVI. And you can learn so much more about CVI and fatigue on CVI Now. Here's Aiden. He's a teenager with CVI in high school. On CVI Now, you can find a whole video playlist of Aiden answering questions during his CVI assessment. And here's a still shot of Aiden sitting in the evaluation room. Aiden shares, when I look at things with a lot of different colors, it kind of plays tricks on my eyes. It can get annoying that it takes a while for me to figure out what something is or where something is. That's so teenager speak. It is annoying. If an object was mixed in with a bunch of things, yeah, I could figure it out, but it'd be harder to recognize what I'm looking for. My eyes get tired looking at things that move. My eyes go crazy. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about motion processing later. Here's Grace, and you'll see images of her reading in large text super close to the computer, and then one where she's wearing pink headphones, holding a device while relaxing on a comfy chair. She's an elementary school student with CVI. Her mom, Jessica, wrote a wonderful article found on cvinow.org about how Grace has become such a voracious reader thanks to audiobooks. Here's how Grace describes what it feels like when she has to read print. When I read, it feels like my eyes are being pulled out from their centers. I have a hard time reading long passages like when we have the end of grade tests because my eyes get tired after about 2 paragraphs. A weird thing about this is I never get tired when I read numbers. This does not stop me from reading lots of audiobooks. Here's Tina. She's a photographer and an artist, an adult with CVI who is attending a college of art. You can see her photography and her story on CVI now. Tina says, I have facial blindness, depth perception issues, spatial blindness, and nighttime blindness. I don't know where I'm going a lot of the time. CVI is unpredictable. Some days are clearer than others. Today I woke up and my vision is off. My nystagmus likes to work with my CVI to make seeing sometimes impossible. Tina's so great. Here's Krish. He has a great video on CVI now, giving a presentation about his CVI to his class. In this image, Chris is at a roller rink wearing a bright red shirt. Such a great photo. Krish said, I have trouble seeing some faces, trouble seeing things farther away. I have trouble seeing in crowded areas. When there's a lot of action and sound happening around me, I can get overwhelmed and it can be hard to use my vision. Sometimes it's hard for me to catch balls fast and keep up with running. And here's my son, Henry, who has found a little bit of newfound advocacy. For the past few years, he's had an increase in really severe migraine episodes, which includes intense cyclic vomiting. Here's an image of him just showing his big smile and wearing a cozy pink sweatshirt, right? Kind of his usual state if he's not tired. And then one of him sleeping in the middle of a really long migraine episode. Hopefully he'll forgive me someday for putting up that picture. Because he's had so much experience with this, he's learning to advocate for himself. He has a speech delay and it's hard for him to verbalize how he's feeling. And he's now able to say, he's come up to able to tell me, turn off the lights. I need dark room time. I can't see, it's blurry. I can't see, it's dark. I can only see your teeth. And when behavior is your only voice, you know, we see behaviors and we need to truly, like deeply in our bones, understand that behavior is communication, always. So you might see when there's no access or when fatigue is coming, resting head and hands, looking away, pushing all items out of view, asking for a snack or preferred activity, running away, needs to move the body, walking to the corner of the room, right, to escape clutter or noise or something, closing eyes and appear to be sleeping, head down and goes to sleep, fidgets and plays with objects near them, needs hugs, holds hands, stays close. This is Henry. Yells, grabs, or shows other outward behaviors. Banging on the table to make items move. Talks, sings, or tells jokes to change the interaction to an auditory event. And these are just some examples. So it's really important then, as observers, as parents, as educators, as providers, to be careful observers and consistently strive to fully understand what the behavior is communicating and what access is needed. So I'm going to shift to some highlights from current research. CVI now has a big CVI research library where you can find current research related to CVI, the brain, and the visual system. It's something that we constantly update. It's important that we continue to follow the science and the research because it's really critical to our advocacy and moving the field forward. Research helps us advocate for that early diagnosis, effective vision services, and accessible educational programs. Too many individuals with CVI are falling through the cracks. Too many are not getting the medical care, services, and educational programming they need to fully thrive. It should not matter how CVI manifests, and it should not matter the zip code. All individuals with CVI have a right to life-changing access and services. It's important to note that the National Eye Institute at the National Institutes for Health set CVI as a research priority in their strategic plan. This is a really big deal for the CVI community, which means more funding and awareness is going towards CVI. And a recent study from the UK shows that 1 in 30 elementary school students in mainstream classrooms have a CVI-related vision difficulty. So we're starting to see more and more prevalence data around CVI. It's the leading cause of childhood blindness, and more data is showing this. Current research shows us an evolving understanding of the diverse manifestations of CVI. Using research from multiple sources and perspectives can support our advocacy needs with school teams and districts, along with local, state, and national leaders. And here's a picture of Henry touching a computer screen that shows an article about the prevalence of CVI and genetic conditions. And so in the Cvi Research Library, we have many different topics of current research, causes and conditions associated with CVI. We're seeing new research that shows associated conditions of CVI that include cerebral palsy. I think the percentage is anywhere between 60 and 70% prevalence. Williams syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, CDKL5 deficiency disorder, Rett syndrome, and a whole host of genetic syndromes and variants. Lots of research on the impact of clutter and the difficulty with visual search. Clutter is public enemy number one for CVI. The world we live in is clutter for CVI. A lot on visual attention and recognition, and some research about the integration of dorsal and ventral visual pathways. This new research tells us that we need to approach visual access and support visual skills from a much more holistic and integrated perspective. Because we used to think that the dorsal stream and the ventral stream kind of work separately together, right? The dorsal stream is your where pathway, understanding where things are in space and your vision for action. The ventral stream is your what pathway that helps you recognize objects. It's your visual library. But we're seeing more and more that there's a highly intricate network in between the two streams, and they need each other to function. And so this new research really shows us then that the CVI visual behaviors are always at play in every situation. This is why CVI is so complex, and it's so important that we really just strive to fully understand all individuals with CVI. And you're going to learn more about CVI behaviors and assessment from Marguerite and Ellen later. Sorry, I'm getting a little excited talking about research. Okay, so we also have research about global motion processing. This past year, I've learned so much about motion processing from research. It's so much more than just a need for slow movement to gain visual attention. Motion processing is really complex, and it requires the integration of many areas and systems in the brain and our visual system. It's a huge part of how we access our world. So many with CVI have difficulty with motion processing, accessing the speed and direction of a moving object, right? Biological motion, how people move, body language, movement of facial expressions. It's a big deal, and I'm really excited to continue to learn more. Lots of great research about processing facial expressions and emotions. Access to people is a huge difficulty. And then research on CVI and ocular conditions. Many individuals also have eye conditions like optic nerve issues or like nystagmus or strabismus. And researchers are really starting to figure out what clinical assessment can look like with current tools they have, because we know there's a critical need for medical community to figure out how to diagnose CVI. So slowly but surely, they're starting to figure that out. And here you see some screenshots of the research library in CVI now. And I want to take a moment to highlight, there's this great book by David Eagleman called Livewire, The Inside Story of the Ever-Changing Brain. And there's so much that he covers, but this quote really stands out to me and others on the CVI team. All sensory, it turns out that all sensory inputs support brain development, right? So it turns out that it doesn't matter how the information gets to the brain, as long as it gets there. Whatever information the brain is fed will learn to adjust to it and extract what it can, as long as the data reflects something important about the outside world. Development has to be rooted in the meaningful multisensory learning in daily routines. The brain, the sensory systems are highly connected. For my son specifically, he's able to access his vision when he's able to engage with whatever he's engaging with tactilely. That just jumpstarts his visual system. So you never know what access can look like for the individual. Multisensory learning is so important. And so it's all about this access to learning, right? Visual skills are not a prerequisite for learning and access. With comprehensive and integrated assessment and accessible educational programming, individuals with CVI can learn to access their world in the way that works best for them. Some use visual skills, some use compensatory strategies, and some use both. I know many with CVI have a strategy for everything. And here's an image of Henry using a muffin tin and color bears to work on graphing skills. The muffin tin is one of my favorite tools to use at home. Okay, so I want to close with some highlights from the CVI Now IEP guide that can be found on cvinow.org. Some of you may already be in the thick of the IEP process, while others are just getting started with the IFSP. The IEP process begins at age 3. And I also know there were several questions about the IEP process today, and this guide can be helpful for everyone, even without a CVI diagnosis. So the CVI Now IEP guide, it's a productive, solutions-oriented resource. It's geared towards families, but I also want this to be a space where both families and professionals come together and just get some shared information. It walks through the IEP process from beginning to end. It covers how IEPs are built and implemented and questions to ask and what to expect at each stage. It incorporates CVI considerations throughout. And there'll be articles about transition services. This is for high school and more. So this is a dynamic, evolving resource. And so I just want to share some big takeaways. And we just had a great conversation about assessment, and assessment drives the IEP. And I wish I truly understood this when Henry was in kindergarten. It was a disaster of a year for him because he did not have a comprehensive vision assessment, a learning media assessment that showed what access looks like for him. And it was just so hard. And I wish if I could go back and turn back time, this would be my priority. Get these comprehensive assessments in so we can figure out what access look like for him, because his behaviors were all across the board. Anyway, so students with CVI require comprehensive assessments, functional vision assessment if there's coexisting ocular impairments, CVI assessments, and there's a growing suite of assessments for CVI, including the CVI Perkins protocol, which you're going to hear again from Margaret and Ellen. The learning media assessment is so important. Once I had the learning and media assessment in place for Henry, he actually started to learn how to read. He's using both Braille and print, and this has been such a great year for him. Orientation mobility assessment, and assistive technology eval, and so on. Students with CVI, I already read that. Present levels must be based on assessment. Goals and objectives must come directly from present level data. Services and placement must be directly connected to goals. Accommodations are the result of data and assessment. And systematic instruction and ongoing data collection is essential, right? Data. Anecdotes without data are meaningless. When we're talking about my child and decisions for him, it must be a data-informed conversation. And parent collaboration is critical. This is totally an understatement. It is essential for the IEP process. And the CVI parent just sums up so well. It's about access to learning. The guiding light should be, how do I make this curriculum accessible, right? It's about high expectations and rigorous standards for all kids with CVI. So we continue to center CVI voices, research, and what access looks like. Every child with CVI can be a reader, a writer, and a problem solver. And this path will look different for each child, but there is always a way. Individuals with CVI are active participants in choosing their path and defining their own success. We cannot predict what an individual with CVI can or cannot do, but we can thoughtfully design instruction that is accessible and meaningful so they have every opportunity to show us their skills and abilities. So definitely keep, code cvinow.org to learn about CVI, current research, promising practices, and find stories from individuals with CVI and families. And I also wanted to share, we have some exciting news. If you haven't already heard, Perkins will host the CVI Collaboration for Change conference on June 26th to June 28th. It's in person with some recordings available after the conference. And here's an image of 2 students with CVI engaging in a book together. I love this picture. So we're honored to convene CVI leaders, medical experts, educators, and parents working toward a common and urgent goal. And, it'll spotlight emerging research in the field and how it impacts our current understanding of CVI. Our keynote speaker is going to be Dr. Michael Chain, the director of the National Eye Institute. It will spotlight promising practices that support access to learning and skill building and independence, firsthand learning from individuals with CVI and families to inform educational medical research, and bold ways to drive policy through medicine, education, and advocacy. And it's been a while since the CVI community has convened, so I'm really, really excited. Families come find connection and community. We're going to have a special breakfast with a family therapist just to talk about the hard stuff. This is tough. This is a tough journey we're on. And educators, come and fortify your work with new research, insight into best practices, and tools that can transform a student's life. Together, we can change the world for individuals with CVI. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to bring in Lacey and Burju as we talk about our experiences as disability parents. Feel free to comment and ask questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A session following our conversation. Hello, Burju and Lacey. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Lacey.
It's so good to see you.
Ladies.
It's so nice. Okay, so how about you guys introduce yourself and just, share how old your kid is, and then we'll dive into some questions. So Burju, you go first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Burju Sarı. I'm teacher of visually impaired and CVI coordinator at Cvi Center at Perkins. I have twin boys, almost 12 years old, and Ömer has CVI and cerebral palsy.
Hi, I'm Lacey. I'm also a CVI coordinator at the Cvi Center at Perkins School for the Blind, and I am mom to an almost 11-year-old Savannah.
They're getting so old.
Yes.
And if folks just joined, I'm Rachel Bennett. I am the assistant director for CVI Now, parent advocacy and support here at the CVI Center. I'm just so grateful I get to work with Burju and Lacey every day. And my son Henry is 9 and will be 10 in September. What is happening? They're so old. Okay, so Lacey, you start with this. Tell me about Savannah. What's going on? Tell me about her.
Okay, well, I said she's going to be 11 next month, which is crazy. It's only about 3 weeks away. And she is a very happy, laid back, just wonderful kid all around. She loves music. She loves water play. She just brings a lot of joy to our life. Aside from that, she has plenty of diagnoses, including CVI. She has a rare genetic mutation known as Ogden syndrome, which comes with a lot of diagnoses, including a heart condition and epilepsy and cerebral palsy, autism. So she has a list of diagnoses, but it doesn't like her. If you know her, she's just wonderful. So she's nonverbal and non-ambulatory. CVI is definitely impacts her life tremendously. So it's been quite the road we've been on with her for the past 11 years.
Yeah.
As you guys both know.
As we all know. Burju, tell us about Ömer.
Ömer is almost 12 years old. He's 11 and a half, but he always says, I'm almost 12, mommy. He loves growing up. He has cerebral palsy, quadriplegia. They say high functioning quadriplegia. So he's using a wheelchair. He can sometimes independently navigate around the environment, depending on his CVI and the environment, of course, how he functions in that environment. His cerebral palsy impacts his, independent living, even like fine motor skills. He has a twin brother who is typically developing. So it's a big advantage that he has a twin brother, but also it's sometimes hard that he compares himself with his brother. So he is doing well. He's, getting lots of support for education and, lots of support for advocacy from mom. And his CVI impacts his life overall. And we see the impact every day, social skills, like education, even like accessing, the curriculum, or even accessing the daily living skills at home and at school or outside in the world.
Yeah, I love how you always say that, Burju. CVI impacts everything every day. Henry, he has CVI. He also has, several other visual impairments, including optic nerve atrophy or hypoplasia. It depends which doctor we go to. He has pretty severe nystagmus. It's very apparent. Myopia, intermittent exotropia. He has, global delays. He's verbal and he's walking, but he has that low muscle tone. So just life is fatiguing. And we're also exploring another new diagnosis. So, things just keep coming for us and our kids, right? There's always something next. And he's a joy. He is a light. He somehow worms his way into everybody's heart. He loves riding the train system here every weekend. I'm sure he's on a train ride as we speak right now. He loves watching YouTube videos of the train. I think it's just, he loves those announcements and the prediction of he knows what's coming next. He knows that there's going to be a next stop, so he can really feel comfortable engaging with that. You know, he loves to play and run around. He loves FaceTiming with grandma and grandpa. And he's loving school more and more because he has an incredible, incredible team. So Burju, I'm going to ask you this. What does success look like in your CVI journey? Because, you know, we're at this point now where it's been a journey, right? It's been a long journey. And so what does success look like for you right now or in the past, or however you want to answer that?
Oh, it's interesting because I was just thinking about, is it in the past or now? Because it changes for me. Like in the past, the success was getting one day at a time, like little things. But as he gets older, his needs are increasing. Then the success criteria are, you know, getting higher and higher, unfortunately. It's not getting easier. Sometimes people say, oh, when kids get older, it's going to get easier. It's not getting easier. I think we just get used to it. That's how I describe it. So to me, as today, like right now for Burju, success looks like advocacy, because I know how to advocate for my son, and access. If Amar accesses something, if you go to playground, if he accesses the playground, that's a success. But also training at the same time. If I'm chit-chatting with someone and if they say, oh, does he have a visual impairment? What is it? And then if you talk about CVI and one person learns about CVI, that's what success looks like for me. I have the privilege of being a part of CVI Center. That's another success because I can reach out to other parents and just, you know, make their journey easier for them, or like more trying to make it more predictable, or like easy to, you know, navigate, because it's hard. As you said, every day looks different and we don't know what comes next. But I always say, I don't know what the future will look like, but we get stronger each day. So we'll be more prepared tomorrow than today. So I'm not scared as I was scared before. That's why I said, like in the past, success looked maybe similar to this, but my emotions was different. My emotion was more like frustration, you know, anger, and you know, like unknown things always makes me frustrated, right? But now I know that it's unknown, so I know that, so I practice that every day. I say, you know what, I don't know what's going to come tomorrow, but I'm prepared. I have a great network of people. I can call Lacey or you and say, I'm so frustrated, help me. So I think we are getting more powerful as we reach out to more parents and families. That's why my journey started at EI, because that was my passion. Like, I want to tell other parents it will get easier because you will get stronger. I hope this answered your question, but
I love it. Thank you. Lacey?
Yeah, so success for me and success for her can look a little different. So, you know, I guess I'm going to answer it in two parts. Success for her is her progression. It doesn't matter how slow it is. You know, we've always been a big believer in those inch stones, and that's milestones. Like, we'll take what we can get. And, you know, really, Savannah has continued to progress in all areas until this past year where she's had some medical setbacks. But success for her also looks like being supported. So we have to meet her where she is. And thankfully, she has an amazing team that's doing that as well at school. You know, her dad and I are educated enough around CVI that we can kind of support her and help her succeed at home. So really, that's success for her. And for me, again, I'm going to go off kind of what Burju said, and it is learning to advocate, because in the beginning, you're not quite sure how to advocate, what to advocate for, when to give up, when to keep going. And I feel, you know, really that I've gained a lot of knowledge, and knowledge is power. And really, it's really kind of helped me advocate for all of her needs, and really, you know, put myself in a better position as well to learn more about CVI and be able to support not only my daughter, but other families as well. So, I mean, success is, you know, it looks different. Looks different every day too, sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Both of those really resonate with me. You know, it's been a long journey. You know, Henry's almost 10, and, you know, in the beginning, you know, we didn't learn about his CVI until he was 5. And so, you know, it was a rough early years. You know, he had a lot of stuff going on. We were in survival mode, like, you know, we all know this, like, can we just get our kids to maintain their weight and feed, and can we keep them out of the hospital? You know, all of these, right? And then, you know, so many doctors and educators missed his CVI, and I got so angry. You know, I was really upset. Like, the system failed Henry at every level, and this is still happening for so many families across the country. And I know when I started learning about CVI, there's this focus on like visual improvement and, you know, overcome. And I've learned now that I've really brought in a disability rights lens to my relationship with Henry, because it's lifelong and he's on the blindness spectrum. And I don't want him ever to feel ashamed for not being able to use his vision. I don't ever want him to connect his worth to whether or not he can use his vision or not. I don't want to connect my worth as a parent to that, you know? So that feels, so right now, like, that just feels really good, because it's really helped my relationship with him, right? I'm not all of his educators are not his TVI, just really trying to get him to use his vision all the time. I'm taking his lead, because he uses vision when he wants to, when it's meaningful, right? When he's watching trains on the video, you know, so he chooses when he wants to. And I'm so here for that, because you know, all of us see our kids have strategies for everything. And so really being able to open my mind and open my landscape of understanding about CVI, about him, Burju, I love that you said, yes, there's so much uncertainty. I mean, Henry has an extremely rare variant, and right now there's no other documented cases. So it's like, how is this going to play out here? This uncertainty is huge. And so how do you live with that? And it takes a lot of work on our end, doesn't it, guys? Like, a lot of personal growth, really got to fill our cups up to just come to peace and acceptance. But it's still hard. It's still hard to raise a kid with disabilities in a society that actively chooses not to be fully accessible and inclusive. And so trying to live with that duality of, you know, him bringing so much joy, he's completely reoriented my life, but then also still going through the hard things, like still feeling that compounding trauma, still feeling the anger, still feeling sad. And that's okay to have both. And I feel like it's been really nice to accept all of those emotions that come with it. And yeah, I'll stop there. So let's talk about the hard things, since I brought it up, because there is, and I know there are parents and families watching and educators, it's really good to know, like, the hard things. Like, let's have permission to talk about the hard things as parents. Just know that this is like always right there under the surface at every IEP meeting, at every interaction. So Lacey, what's the hardest thing you're working through right now?
Just one.
Hey, how much time do we have, Amy? Here we go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just touched on one of the hardest things I think that we all work through as parents, and that's really, you know, it's so easy to love our kids. It's so easy to love every single ounce of who they are, but to have society accept them for who they are and include them and make their life accessible, it is something we will forever struggle with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the big picture thing. You know, hard things for us this year. I touched on it briefly, but I said she regressed in 2 areas for the first time in 10 years. Like, she's always been on a very slow inching along on her own timeline, but she's always been moving, you know, forward. And this year, because of her seizures and her medications, she's had a couple of big setbacks, including we've seen her like vision regression. So when I say that, I mean, Savannah was just starting to understand some of her really highly familiar things in 2D form, meaning she was connecting the pictures to the images, or to the objects to the images. And she's not really interested in doing that right now. So again, that's where there's another success. We're meeting her where she is. She's really auditory right now. That's what we're going with. You know, she could have a amazing next IEP year because we have figured this out and we're there to support her. But one of the other challenges that we've really faced this year again are just like not so much vision related, but she's a mystery kid. She has a really, you know, like Henry, she has a really rare mutation, and there are less than 100 cases worldwide of Ogden syndrome, but Savannah seems to be one of the more complex kids. And this year, my little foodie, and I mean my little foodie, she always, her biggest strength has always been feeding, and she's been motivated to learn through feeding, and she suddenly just stopped wanting to eat. So, you know, we can't use that as her motivation to learn new things. So it was really challenging. She's in a great place right now. She's like my little foodie again, but this is twice since 2022 has started. So we're unsure of really what this means. We've tried to have everything checked out, but nothing's coming back. So we're here for it day to day. You know, we can continue to push her to eat, and but we also respect her, and you know, in every area, her vision and her feeding, and we have to take a step back sometimes and look at what she's trying to tell us. So it's been a crazy year.
Yeah. And that of course includes coordinating all of her medical care and the bazillion of appointments. And
just
she has to affirm that for you.
I feel like she needs her own administrative assistant or something, because me keeping up with all the doctor's appointments, it's been a lot. And when things like this go on, as we all know, it's more coordination, it's more time off, it's more, you know, just trying to figure out how our life is going to work while we're working, and while we're supporting our kids.
And then navigating through the own trauma that's coming up for you as well.
Yeah, it is
such a big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
We can talk about that later. Burju, go ahead. What's the hardest thing you're working through right now?
Right now, well, right at the second. It really changes every day, but let's talk about this year, right? Like, I'm thinking about what had we been struggling with the most this year is he's a 5th grader, and he's in the same classroom with his twin brother. I think this year, the struggle piece that has been most is the socialization, social skills, and inclusion. We are in an amazing community. We live in Acton, and the school that he's attending, they know Amar, they accept Amar. But when we go out of our bubble, things start becoming more difficult. Like when we go to, like, we went to Niebuhr Street last week, like everyone was looking at us, and now Amar can see people looking at him, and he keeps asking, like, why do people look at me all the time, mommy? What is wrong with me? Like, or like they kind of like, you know, stare at him. And then that kind of like brings it up that, you know, maybe I haven't done enough. Like always it's, you know, blaming yourself, as you all know, like, what could I have done better so that he was more prepared for this? Or like, you know, his brother is being invited to play dates, or like playing on the street, you know, like they go to a field to play soccer, and he can't go there, like not because of his CP, but because of his, you know, CVI as well, because we can't just let him on his wheelchair and say, okay, you're off, go. Like he can't see the curbs, he can't see the drop-offs, like he can't, if there is a light changing on the floor, he stops, he freezes. So it's all like constant support, and it is like a vicious cycle, because he needs that support, we provide that support, but then emotional, like that mental load on us is like incredibly heavy. That maybe this question is not a perfect timing for me, because he just had a surgery and he's recovering from that. So I emotionally, I feel like so drained right now, because I had to support him so much. Like he keeps asking why is it me? Like, why is it not my brother? Like I always go through a surgery. Like I always go through, like, I don't have CVI. And then one day he wakes up, I have CVI. So he has those like back and forth, and, you know, the hormonal changes impact that too, right? Like his emotional mood swings are like coming into the picture now, like which wasn't happening last year this time. And I don't know how to deal with it, Rachel. Like, I don't know. I'm a first-time mom with my twins. Like,
Right.
I asked my mom, but my mom didn't have a child with special needs.
Right.
And it's really hard to find that mentor. Like, I go to counseling, right? I talk about it, but my counselor doesn't have a child with, CVI and CP. So it's really hard to find that balance in my life. And just when he asks me a question, I don't know how to answer. Like he says, why doesn't anyone invite me for a play date? I say, maybe their house is not accessible. Maybe they are scared, but nobody asks, mommy. So I would have said, I can come, but can we hang out in the backyard? I'm like, yes, you're right. How can we make it possible? People ask, right? Like, and then he goes, says, does anyone want to do play date with me? And then nobody says yes, because they're scared to have him over. And they're older now. Parents don't stay during play dates, or they don't have play dates. They're hanging out together.
Right. Yeah.
It's just that the getting older piece that's hitting me very hard. And I don't know how to address that question.
Yeah.
And the same thing with CVI, like he doesn't recognize people on the street, right? We have to say, hey, Omar, it's your friend this. And then he gets mad because I said it out loud, and he gets ashamed. Like, he's like, don't tell me I'm not blind, but I know that he doesn't have facial recognition. And it's hard to balance how much we should help, too much help, or too little help. And it's unpredictable how he's gonna, take it or not take it. Yes, it's a constant struggle how to support the CVI piece and the CP piece and social skills and the emotional support.
You've named so much. The getting older piece is really hitting me as well. Him turning 10, it's like, it's no longer, oh, he's 4, he's still, he's behind, but but now it's like really paramount, and it's now navigating this world where he's not, where he's different from his same age peers, and how we need to really facilitate inclusion in the load that takes on. Like, we need to, at every turn, try to change the world around him. Right. So I can't even finish that thought. That's really big. So I feel that too with Henry. With Henry, for the past 3 years, I mentioned this earlier, he's had this increase in really severe migraine episodes. Like, there'll be like a 12, 15-hour event with the pain and then the vomiting. And we didn't know what they were for a while until we found a really great neuro team at MGH here in Boston. And they're like, he's having abdominal migraines. And so, but just to see him suffer and be in pain, and he's had to miss a lot of school. And we finally kind of figured out medication, and, there's questions about, potential seizure activity, going to the EEG, like, doing all the things, Lacey, all the medical care, and just trying to figure things out. But, so it's hard, when things just change. It's like, okay, he's a little more medically complex right now, than he was last year. Like, what's going on? And so you just, like you said, Burju, maybe you can talk about this next, but like, how do we fill up our cup so we can manage the uncertainty? But, it's tough. It's hard.
And Rachel, I want to add one thing, because Omar got diagnosed with migraine too, as I told you before. And I think it's very common, like for people who are listening, it's very common for individuals with CVI to have migraine, but also he recently got diagnosed with anxiety. So and then I did a little bit of research on that, and anxiety and migraine, they go hand by hand for people with disabilities, but more so often for individuals with CVI, because it's all neurological. He has a brain injury, right? And his nervous system is impacted. So it's like people who are out listening, that they can do that research and they can bring it up to their neurologist, because we found a great solution for his migraine.
Same, we're finally figuring it out. We're finally figuring it out. It's been, knock on wood, it's been a good few weeks.
Oh, awesome.
Knock on all the wood around me.
I know. That's the house too.
So let's talk a little bit about like how do each of you deal with the uncertainty and the trauma that comes up, just to like get through the next day, because I'm sure people who are watching this are feeling the same thing as well, and it's just so important to talk about these hard things. So Lacey, you don't want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I really think, again, on the rare disease child, she has such a rare disease, and I think that I've lived my life uncertain of what's going to come. Like I remember when she was younger, like being concerned about her life expectancy, and because we didn't know anything. I mean, we're still teaching doctors about her syndrome, but the day to day, like,
yeah,
honestly, like, I think what's helped me the most is that I have a really positive outlook. I've always have. I don't know why I was given that, but it's been, while this is really hard, it really is. I 100% get that. I'm thankful that she's here.
Yeah.
So day to day stuff, like
you're getting me emotional.
you take it one day at a time. I know it, but it's true. Like, I feel like I'm so blessed that, when she was born, I didn't know what was going to happen. I think that's how we all feel. We're all like, what the heck is happening? So day by day, I feel like, you just conquer whatever obstacle is in front of you.
Yeah.
And some days are super awesome and great. And some days are just so mentally draining that, like you say, we're surviving. Like, we're making it through. I don't care if my house is a mess. I don't care what else is going on.
Right.
We're making it through. So really, it's like keeping a positive outlook. Even if it doesn't feel like it's achievable at the time, like, just find something positive to focus on. And one thing I focus on all the time is her joy. Like, I can't say that enough. Like, she helps me because she is so strong and she's so joyful. And I feel so blessed that she's my daughter.
She's so lucky to have you.
She has the best smile.
She does have the
best smile. Like, that will, like, so joyful. That will just.
So does Mara has a great smile too.
They all do.
What do you do, Bergia? How do you, like, keep yourself going? How do you fill up your cup?
It's hard every day. But the good thing is, like, in the past, when it was hard day, it was a hard day all day, right? Or like couple of days. But now I had to really focus on thinking about it could have been worse, right? Like, it could have been worse. Or like, I think about, like, how was it when they were born, when the first doctors told me that he's gonna be like a vegetable, like laying in the bed, not doing anything.
Tell us these things. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was like thinking, how can I deal with a child with a disability who will look like a vegetable? I'm like, what does that mean? Like, it was incredibly tough for me to process that information and picture myself being a mom of a child who is bedridden, not being able to move at all. So, and looking at him now, I'm like, oh my goodness, there are so many things that I can be grateful. He can talk, he can just smile at me, he can just tell me how he's feeling, or he can just, say, Mom, I want to eat ice cream. Or like when he's eating something, like sweet, like he smiles. Like, that connection, I think, is really important. Or like being here, like I can hug him and I love his smell. Like, I can just smell it and say, I can't believe what doctors told me in NICU back in 2010, that the survival rate was 30%. And look at him now, he's 12 years old, almost 12, and he is doing so much that I'm so proud of him. So I think hanging on to the past and what could have been worse versus what he can do, of course, I'm thinking about future and say, I don't know what's going to happen. Is he going to be able to get married? Is he going to be able to live? Like the other day, Rachel, he told me that, Mom, what would I do if you die? And I'm like, oh man, I'm not ready for that question. Like, I'm like, those moments.
That's my greatest fear.
Right? I'm like, I said, do you know what I said? I'm not planning to die soon.
It's not going to happen.
Right. And he said, Mom, I hope you don't, because then I will be stuck here. I'm like, oh, that feeling. So then I think, put yourself into their shoes, like
Yeah.
people with disabilities versus
Mhm.
we are helping them, we are supporting people, but they
Mhm.
live with it. So
Right.
I think we should be grateful that, just like Lacey said, they're here with us, right? And
Yeah.
the other thing that I'm so grateful, Ömer made me who I am today. I wasn't this bourgeois before. I wasn't here
Right.
helping others. I wasn't here. I
Right.
didn't have you as my special friends. These are all because of him. He is the spark, in my life. Like that's, I think I always said until today, like, oh, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We have to focus on, don't look left or right or back, just move forward, right? But he is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I really have to focus on that and say, it doesn't matter. He can be home, he can be unemployed, because we know the unemployment rate is incredibly high. And
So much
as
change.
long as he's healthy and happy, I don't care. I think we are learning to be happy from small things. We appreciate more. Like I look at my friends changed, right? Like I don't have my pet friends anymore in my life, because our lives changed. Like we look at the world from a different perspective, from a different window. I'm grateful for birds chirping. I'm grateful for a leaf like flying, and then they're like grateful for like an expensive car or an expensive house. I don't care, as long as my son can talk to another person. That's inclusion, that's advocacy, that's the training that's happening there. And I'm like, yoo-hoo, we did it. So it's great. I changed a lot. I wasn't like this before. I was like, so I'm so grateful about that. But we're learning all together. I'm so happy to be connected with a lot of people in my life, that just because of that.
I love that. Our kids have totally changed us. My life, who I am, I've totally reoriented my life, and wouldn't change it for a hot second.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's been really important to just like not feel guilty about taking care of my needs, and, carving out time to go get my workout in, carving out time to make sure that I'm okay, because like you said, every day can be unpredictable. And I want to always give my best self and the most love to Henry, and to really, we're human and it's real, and, his behaviors can be really tough, and I may not respond to them in the best way. But I just really, really fully realizing, internalizing, like I need to figure out how to set my boundaries and take care of myself, because that's just going to help me, him, and my family. And also just know that like the trauma comes up, it's so unexpected, right? It comes up in the most unexpected moments. And I just need to lean into that, and just name it and talk about it, because so much of our lives with our kids are just being really numb to, going to those appointments and seeing how, and just all of like, you have to be, for me, I just had to figure out how to be numb, right? Like when I almost lost him in the hospital, like you have to be numb to all of those things. And so just trying to like, I haven't been able to go back to all those feelings when I was younger yet. I don't know if I'll ever come back from that, but just like, just really starting to like, just like be okay that the trauma is going to come up, and that's just part of my life. But like you said, Burju, like I find joy in so many new places, and to experience and find people, experience who I am outside of being a disability parent as well, and so just a lot of different things I'm still trying to figure out, but it's just a whole personal growth journey. And it's just okay to talk about the hard stuff. We love our kids so much, but it's also still hard, and that's okay. So I want to end right now, because I know we've been talking a little past time, but that's okay. What is whichever question you want to answer, what is empowering you right now? Or what do you hope for your child, or both? Lacey, you want to start?
Yeah, again, for empowerment, like what empowers me? It's the work that I do. It starts with Savannah. Just as we're talking about, all of our kids have led us on this amazing path. I didn't know a single person with a visual disability before my daughter. And to see where I am now because of her, it's truly empowering. I think that, not only that, but just like the families, the kids, you know, I just transitioned into this new role, but I've worked with tons of infants and toddlers. I'm working with now some school age kids. Like they empower me, like they're truly incredible. And to think like how easy our life is in so many ways compared to theirs. Like, I think that's my drive. That's my motivation, is how can we help them? How can we help their families too? Because we are families. And I think, you know, the three of us can easily say that we get this different, like we're on this different empathetic level, because we've been there. Even if the journey is not the same, we've been there. We understand how hard this is. So, you know, when I think about what empowers me, it's the work we do.
Virgil, I love that, Lacey. Thank you.
Empowering. I think learning. As we learn more about CVI empowers me, because I feel more powerful so that I can really spread that knowledge and help others. Or like, for example, we just started CVI club at the CVI center, and just seeing those like students learn something new. And then when first they say, oh, I can't do that, I'm like, let's make it possible. And you know, you can do it. And then once they start doing it, they're like, they can't even believe themselves that they had done it. So that's empowering me. Just like Lacey said, watching kids succeed. Or my son, you know, watching him do something new and then learn something new, I think empowers me. What I expect from future, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but I want Ömer to take over the flag from me in the CVI world. And I want him to be a leader and helping others. I hope he'll do one day. Our kids imagine, like, I don't know, because we won't be in the field. Maybe we'll be old, retired. And then I want to watch them succeed. And just
I haven't even thought of that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. So hopefully,
the next generation.
Yeah, and research. They can do research. They can do just help others, advocate, or like just go talk in the public and just spread the awareness, increase the awareness of CVI.
I love that.
And
for sure, I'll just have to say real quick, like, just, you know, I always think of Ömer as one of the first teachers that I knew, because he was verbal and he could tell you different things. And so like once we start learning, I mean, that Rachel talked about the CVI voices. This is where we are, like, expanding and learning.
So much of my learning. And I love that we've had the adults with CVI starting to really find their collective voice. And I can't wait till, you know, our kids are part of that collective, you know? You know, what's empowering for me, it's really seeing Henry learn in the way that looks best for him. He's learning to read. He's learning to read Braille and print. And he's learning blindness skills. And it's been incredible to watch him figure out his world in the way that works best for him. And it's just, me being open to that and me just taking his lead. It's been such a game changer. It's been such a game changer for us and him. And I'm really empowered by that for every individual with CVI, it's a different path and we have to be open. There isn't one way to do CVI, right? Of course not. It's such a big, complex condition. And I feel really empowered that there are options. There are options for kids with CVI, and that reading, learning, writing can look different. And I'm just so excited that we have the technology as well, you know, to support our kids. But that's really empowering me. And like you said, being a lifelong learner, we're learning so much about research. It's really incredible. So, oh my goodness. I have so much hope. I really think we're going to be able to figure this out for our kids. And I can't wait till they step up. When we
step up and take the plaque.
Yeah, take the place. We can just like relax somewhere. Anyway, Amy, are there any questions that came through? So we talked a long time. Apologies, Amy.
No, gosh, I couldn't stop you. I couldn't get out of my chair. I'm here drying my face with my mask.
Oh no.
You three are so gosh darn impressive. I appreciate your bravery and just sharing your journey with us, sharing your child's journey with us. I sure got a lot of it. So I can't even imagine what the audience is feeling. So there are a couple comments as well as one question. So I'd love to feed those to you before we move on to Ellen and Marguerite, if that's okay. Great. Let me pull them up. I'll read the comments first and then we'll dive into the questions. So this is a mom. I love my Sam very, very much, and I would do anything to help him. But I want people to understand you're just going to have to be patient, and Sam will eat when he wants to. Her question is tied to eating, which I'm going to give to you, Lacey, in a second.
Yeah.
And then she's thanking all of you. Thank you very much to all of you. I can relate to everything Rachel, Burju, and Lacey are saying. You are right, Lacey. I'm very lucky to have Sam in my life, and he makes me a better person.
Yep.
I have started affirmations. This helps me stay positive.
Oh, nice.
Right? Oh.
That's so good.
So with that, here's her question. Lacey, how do you get your team to understand why your child stopped eating? My son has food aversion, and he stopped eating after he was diagnosed with hypercalcemia. That was in 2017. Sam still doesn't eat real meals and has had to have a G-tube placed. Sam's sensory is very heightened. Sensory processing disorder, Williams syndrome, CVI, of course, strabismus, farsighted, sensory neuro, bilateral hearing loss, bone structure problems, dentistry problems, and intellectual disability. That is a great picture of your child, Elizabeth. Thank you for listing all of those and sharing that today. So really the question to you, Lacey, is how do you get your team to understand that your child stopped eating? And if you don't mind sharing a little how you approach those two situations with Savannah.
So for Savannah, I mean, it became pretty obvious that she was she was such a great eater, and for her just to kind of not be interested, it became really obvious to not only us as her parents, but also her team. So we had conversations about it often. So I collaborated a lot with her speech therapist and her OT and her classroom teacher about best ways to support her. You know, what we ended up doing, we did a swallow study, and that showed some kind of results that, you know, I guess I've had a harder time with because I feel like she's a stronger eater. But really, it was that team collaboration. And we got to the point where we said, we don't care how her food looks, just make sure she's eating it. And so there's just been a lot of really strong communication and openness about what's going on, a lot of meetings on how to best support Savannah in school. And as things have changed, they've been able to see that too. Like the last few weeks, she's had an amazing, she's back to eating everything like she was. And it's just been great to watch, but we know that we're not out of the woods yet, because we are also facing a lot of G-tube talk, and, you know, it's just openness. And one more thing I'll mention is we did do a week-long intensive therapy, feeding therapy for her at the Napa Center in Boston. So she was doing some vital stim and, you know, just really working on those skills and remaining open and honest with her team.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lacey. No more questions, but 2 comments I'd love to read live to you guys. This has just been absolutely wonderful. I'll reiterate that. From Jen, absolutely love the passion in this conversation. Thank you for talking about the hard things.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
From Hillary and Ada, not a question, just wanted to say thank you so much to all 3 of you for sharing so deeply.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, what a day, folks. We have one last presentation for you. Rachel, you want to close things out and kick it to Ellen and Marguerite?
Sure. Thank you so much, Bridget and Lacey.
Thank
guys are
you.
great.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
It was an honor.
Take care of yourselves. Be well.